So, part two. Right. Hey guys, how's it going? DQ here. Welcome back to my channel. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. It's so nice to meet you and I'm glad you are here. I post videos every week about Australia and Germany, so if that sounds like your cup of tea, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. And yeah, so today's video is actually part two. You guys seem to have enjoyed my video about my very first day in Germany, so I'm like, you know what, let me actually go on and tell you about the first month, because everything changes a lot after the first day. The first day where you land in a different country, you're just completely overwhelmed with everything. It's like the lights, this, oh, you've been on a flight, you've been on this, and so you're just super tired and everything just comes at you at once. But there's also a lot that you don't experience on the first day, you know? Also, excuse me, I don't know if you can see the mess behind me, but we are also in the middle of painting, so don't judge me. I decided to make this a series as well, so we're gonna have a 5-video series on this. Don't get me wrong, each video is gonna be a little bit different, mainly because they were different phases of my life in Germany. So the next video will be part 3 that will come out next month in November. So hit the subscribe button. That one's gonna be more about internships and everything in Germany and the interaction that I had with the people. And then you also have when I entered the job market and when I did so much more. So this is something that I am really excited to bring to you guys. So yeah, hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss any of those videos. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start this mess. Let's get it. All right, so my first month, I'm still in Dusseldorf and I'm at this language school, right? The one thing that I realized is that you need cash everywhere. I mentioned this in another video and everyone's like, oh, it's changing. I do know it's changing, but Germany is still very cash based. Why is this? A lot of people are saying they don't want to be controlled by the government. They don't want the government tracking them all the time, which I completely understand. With the world, how it's going now, everything is being tracked, but you really need cash everywhere in Germany. Going to that little bakery, going to that ice cream shop. I never had to pay so many international bank fees because of all the cash that I kept needing to take out. You go into that bar, you go into that club, you needed cash everywhere. And that's just something that I wasn't used to coming from America. In America, everything is accessible by card, but you know what? I get it now. I didn't really think about it before, but I completely understand it because the government actually tracks everything you do. Whereas here in the US, when I get my cash tips, when I was working as a bartender or a server, and I got my cash tips and everything, I made sure not to put that money into my bank because I didn't want to pay more taxes on them. So I always paid in cash at places and just watched my bank account grow and increase from the money that I was actually making for my paychecks. But speaking about all those bakeries and ice cream parlors and everything that I just said, that's also something that is completely different than here in the US. Yes, if you're in like the downtown areas or somewhere, you can find these bakeries. You can walk into somewhere, walk into a coffee shop, walk into this. But the bakeries in Germany were everywhere. You could literally find a bakery on every corner of the road or the street. You could be in the suburbs and at that corner, you will find a bakery. And can I just say the bread was absolutely amazing and tasty in Germany. I was never into different types of bread and everything. I was only into white bread because white bread is very, very popular in the US. Now because of Germany, I refuse to eat white bread. I will only do whole grain or only do wheat bread. Or some darker bread. I refuse to eat white bread now because of Germany, and I am so happy. It is so much healthier. I didn't really know before, but you know, you learn, and that's the one thing that I loved about it. Just all those bakeries and everything. And also the butchers. There are so many butchers. So butcher, for the German speakers that are out there, if you don't know what a butcher is, it's a Metzgerei. So you had so many butchers everywhere, and I never knew there were so many different types of ham. The ham that I was used to, and it's so funny, I went to like, what was the store in my town? Edeka, and I was just like, oh, do you have like any honey ham or something? They were like, what? Excuse me? Because what you actually have is like farm ham. I'm trying to translate everything directly. So Farmerschinken or farm ham is pretty much it, or some of the other hams that I actually had. And prosciutto, we do have prosciutto in the US, but I didn't know it was so good. I never had prosciutto before in Germany, and oh, I absolutely love it. It is so good, and I'm so happy I learned about it, because all I do now is eat so much prosciutto. Every time I go to the supermarket, whether it was in Germany or Australia or here in the US, I get some prosciutto because I absolutely love it. Put it on some crackers, get some cheese and everything. And speaking of cheese, whoa, the cheese in Germany is so good. So good. We have a lot of processed cheese here in the US, and we have cheese in a can. Like, who wants to eat cheese out of a can? I personally have never eaten cheese out of a can, but it's just one of those things that's like, oh my God. I'm not gonna lie though, a lot of the cheese in Germany that I fell in love with was actually from Switzerland. I was paying at least 20 euros for that cheese, but you know what? Bergkäse, so like mountain cheese, is, oh my gosh, it is so good. It is so tasty, and I never knew how much I love cheese until then. I loved cheese before, like I love macaroni and cheese. It's my favorite dish on the world, but the cheese in Germany was so good. So I was already in love with not only the bread, the ham, but also the cheese. And then all the different German dishes that you guys have. Schnitzel. I know it's like typical German and you can get schnitzel almost everywhere, but the schnitzel in Germany is on a whole different level than anywhere else. I never had schnitzel before, and I never thought of having it anywho, but I had it in Germany. It was absolutely amazing. I do eat it. No, I actually haven't had schnitzel since leaving. Yeah, no, it's not worth it. But another dish that I miss as well, just from the first month, was the Spätzle. I might be saying that in my dialect. It might be like Spätzle in High German. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I always ate Käsespätzle as well. And these are just all foods that are absolutely amazing. Just what? Dusseldorf made an impression on me, and I'm so sad that I'm not living in Dusseldorf. I would try to find a job so hard in Dusseldorf, but it was a little difficult. Another thing that I didn't know was about hostels. I know something so trivial, like a lot of people are gonna be like, hostels? You didn't know about hostels? No. Hostels aren't really a thing in the US. You will have some in kind of like the bigger cities, maybe, but coming from Boston, even here in Charlotte, I don't think we have any hostels. I don't remember seeing any, but I never thought I wanted to stay in one until I was in Germany and I stayed at a hostel. Like, we took a trip to Berlin from my language school at the Goethe Institute, and we stayed at a hostel, and I was just like, oh, it's so cheap. It was like 15 euros a night or something, and I'm just like, why am I paying hundreds of dollars for a hotel when I could just stay at a hostel, meet other travelers and other people that are doing what I'm doing, and hang out with them? Because you know how often I would go stay at a hotel, and I travel solo. I almost always travel solo, maybe because it's so hard to coordinate with friends and everything. But I would always stay at a hotel and be super lonely, try and get on like the couch surfing app and see if there were any meetups and whatnot. But a lot of the things I actually did by myself. And we all know going to that bar, to that club by yourself is a little boring, but it is what it is. Absolutely love hostels, and now that I know that they actually exist, I am obsessed with them and stay at hostels a lot when I travel. So another thing that hit me right off of the bat was city architecture. Now, this might spark like, well, what about New York? You have very nice cities. What about California? What about Miami? but we don't have the European architecture. A lot of the buildings, especially in Dusseldorf, were so beautifully made. You had like people walking up a building. Obviously, they're fake people and whatnot, but the creativity was just absolutely amazing. You could tell. And also the lack of skyscrapers, which I now understand is because of like airplanes and also property value and whatnot. But I was like, there's no skyscrapers. Where are the big buildings? Like, a lot of the buildings aren't big in Germany. If you want to learn more about that, let me know in the comments below and I will make a video about that. But architecture was just so creative and beautifully made and done. And not just that. A lot of the cities in Germany have rivers flowing through them. Especially in Dusseldorf, you have the Rhine. I don't know why we don't really have this in the US, but it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Even in a small town that I moved to later on, we had a river going through it. A very, very small town with like just casually a river going through and whatnot. And this is something we don't really have in the US. This might be a thing in New York or so. I'm not really quite sure. I haven't been to New York. I've driven through it countless of times, but I've never actually stopped to see the city. But a lot of our cities here, we don't have rivers going through. And so it's just one of those things like, oh man, especially here in Charlotte where I'm actually now because of COVID, there's no rivers. You won't see any rivers going through the city whatsoever. We do have a couple of lakes, but again, those aren't in the city. They're a little on the outskirts and whatnot. And that's just something that you just won't see here in the US. And since there are so many rivers, the city's kind of built around them, in a sense where you will have a lot of restaurants at the river. And there's nothing more beautiful than just looking out the river, seeing a couple of boats go by, having the sun go down, and enjoying a nice cold beer. And another thing that you guys have are the beer gardens. The beer gardens are crazy insane. They're beautiful, and you can actually walk around with alcohol as well. So now that we're actually talking about alcohol, the alcohol in Germany is cheaper and the laws are different as well. Obviously in Germany you're allowed to drink beer and wine at the age of 16, and then you're allowed to drink hard liquor at the age of 18. Coming from a country where it's 21 for that, it was absolutely insane that you're allowed to do that at the age of 16. And that's just something that just blew my mind. I'm like, what are these kids doing at this beer garden that I'm sitting at right now? And they're like, oh yeah, the drinking age is 16. I'm like, what? Seriously? What in the world? That's absolutely crazy. But the alcohol, I mentioned it in my previous video, the alcohol is super cheap. A beer for like €3, and it's one of the tall beers too. It's not like a small one. It's absolutely insane. I will say this though, the shots in Germany are actually smaller than the ones here in the US. We, I think it's what, 2 CLs is a shot in Germany, whereas for us, shots are typically double that here in the US. And so I was just like, oh my, but that 2 CL shot of tequila or vodka that you're probably drinking, it's like €1.50. What in the world? I'm getting shots for €1.50? That's absolutely insane. That's maybe like $2 for a shot of tequila or vodka or something. It's absolutely insane. I will say there's also a lot of Russians in Germany, and I met some Russians at this bar in Dusseldorf. And I think it was like our first week of classes and everything, and I decided to drink with them, but they were like 17, 18, and so it was just weird for me drinking with 18-year-olds, and I was 22 at the time. And so it was just absolutely insane for me that I'm drinking with them, and he always be like, 2 vodka, 2 for him, 2 for me. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I outdrank that Russian guy, but I did not make it to class the next morning. So there's also that. So also talking about alcohol, and I mentioned Berlin a little bit earlier. So let's go to like transportation and everything. The trains and buses are so reliable in Germany. And I know the Deutsche Bahn It's always late and everything, but there's always trains and buses running, especially the city trains. The city trains typically, I think, are good. Mainly because here, we don't really have any of these city trains. Here in Charlotte, we just got a train system like 3 or 4 years ago. So it's very brand new. There are buses, but where I live, there's no trains or buses that come here. Whereas in Germany, I didn't realize that, like I said earlier, how the bakeries will be on the top of a road or something. There will be trains going to so many different places, and that train system runs to, depending on the area and whatnot, maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're in a city like Berlin, it might be until 5 o'clock in the morning. Then they'll have like an hour or 2 break. I'm not quite sure, don't quote me on that. But it's absolutely crazy to think that when you're not in the city center or in a highly populated area, you're in the suburbs or something, like you're out, that there's trains that will run there. We just don't have that. If I didn't have a car right now, I wouldn't be able to work. I wouldn't be able to get anywhere. I would have to get an Uber or a taxi in order to do something, because there's no reliable train system or bus system in the United States. It just does not exist. My favorite thing as a kid was a bike. I could ride my bike everywhere because there was no bus system that drove around and would drop people off at a certain area. It just doesn't happen here in the US like it does in Europe, I should say. It's not a German thing, it's a Europe thing. But there's also, I'm pretty sure you can do this, but there's no way, like for example, to go from Charlotte to New York by train. I'm pretty sure you can, because I know my aunts come from Alabama to Charlotte sometimes by train, but they're probably going to be in that train for like a day. So there's just not that. And we took a train from Dusseldorf all the way to Berlin, and I thought it was super, super convenient and reliable. Can I just say I absolutely love the ECE, so the ICE, the ICE train, I guess you could say in English. I absolutely love it. Going 240 kilometers an hour, just whipping through, it's absolutely insane. You guys are like rocking it with the transportation. Absolutely loved it. And Berlin itself is a whole nother world. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little too busy and too mainstream for me, so it's not one of my favorite cities. Dusseldorf, Hamburg, and Nuremberg are my favorite cities in Germany, but Berlin is just on a whole different world. The Berlin Wall was absolutely amazing, the graffiti and everything. And when I was there, they didn't have all the fences and everything up. I've been a couple of times since, and so they have the fences blocking the walls and everything now. I'm not quite sure if it's still a thing, so let me know in the comments down below if those fences are still up. But another thing that I realized is that you can go partying in Germany at the age of 16. You just need like your mother slip, so the Mutti-Zettel. So you just need that permission slip and everything, because I believe one of the people at our school was actually 17, and I was just like, oh, you're not going to be able to come to the club. Just like, oh no, it's 16 in Germany, you can go partying. And I'm just like, what? You can go partying at the age of 16 in a club? There are restrictions and everything to that, like there's the midnight restriction and then 2 a.m., blah, blah, blah. But the fact that a 16-year-old can literally go to the club with someone that's like 30, I think it's a little scary, especially since that person isn't legal, but it's also super insane and whatnot. Obviously, they will have different wristbands on and maybe X's on their hands so people know it's like, oh, they're underage, let me not flirt with that person. But it's still really scary that the 16-year-olds can go partying with older people. Obviously, not all clubs are letting 16-year-olds in. There are clubs that are only 18 plus and then 21 plus, etc., etc. But even still, 16-year-olds going partying, just and some of them try to be creative. They like take off their wristbands, they take off the X's or something, or they'll have like a marker on them and they'll remark themselves. And creativity, yo. Creativity. So these were pretty much the main things that hit me just in the first month. The differences and the culture shock between America and the US. It's absolutely insane that there really is a big gap between our countries in these aspects. And I really do think that Germany has the upper hand on all of these compared to the US. I never really thought that I would fall in love with another country that wasn't my native country. Don't get me wrong, I love traveling, so I already knew I was gonna love the country, but it's absolutely insane how your image and your perspective change just off of 1 month of being in another country, you know? To see more videos like this, hit one of these videos on the screen. Hit this one up here if you want to see part 1 of this. It's actually going to be the first day. So if you haven't seen the first day of me in Germany, click that video right up here. Click the one right here to see the 5 best things that I think Germany does. And then this one right here to actually see what America should actually learn from Germany. And stay tuned for my video next week where I actually tell you why you should move to Germany. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification as well, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.